Yama Yama, Mitch Tambo here. I'm a proud Gamilaroi man and Yama Yama, Mitch Tambo here. I'm a proud Gamilaroi man. And guess what, you mob? We are here. We've arrived. It's December. I know, brothers in two jackets, but it is summer. We are pumped up for the holidays. This is our last yarning strong for the year. I know, brothers in two jackets, but it is summer. We're going to get deep. We are pumped up for the holidays. But it's going to be an incredible reflection, looking back at some of the key moments of this year's incredible series of Yarn Strong. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my deepest, utmost respects to the true owners of this place and land in which I'm on in this point in time, the Wurundjeri people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, their ancestors that have walked over this land since the beginning of creation. And thank you for having me and my family and another incredible season of Yarning Strong based upon your beautiful country.
Yes, I'd also like to, thank you for joining and being part of this session. It definitely is our last Yarning Strong for the year, which is sad, but we will have hopefully more continuing next year. But I'm a proud Jawoyn, Warlpiri and Gurindji woman. I am Support Act's First Nations Community Engagement and Social Worker, and my name is Carissa Benjamin. And I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am on, the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also pay my respects to all First Nations people across Australia today. Before we do go into this conversation, if any of you do feel triggered, please call our helpline on 1-800-959-500. You'll be able to book an appointment with our consultants, and that can help you through any of the things or any triggering things that you hear in this conversation. I also want to let you know that there will be a video of a deceased person, Aboriginal deceased person, in this clip. So to give you an oversight of mental health in the music industry alone, a lot of musicians struggle with low or irregular income. Sometimes the work environment is unsafe, it's very transient, it's very competitive, and it's physically straining. So those are the mental health impacts on our music industry people alone. But when you compare the impacts to what our First Nations people go with on top of these impacts, a lot of our mental health factors are disempowerment, intergenerational trauma, grief and loss, racism, poverty, incarceration, denied rights, lack of education, and many other issues that impact First Nations people. So this is what our First Nations musicians go through in terms of a mental health perspective as a whole.
Thanks, Carissa. Moving on though, can I just say, what a year it has been. We've navigated our way out of COVID into what may or could have or was monkeypox, back into a potential another COVID on the horizon. But you know what? There's been some incredible moments along the way. I mean, it's been one of those years, hasn't it? There's been, grief and loss and sorrow, but also there's been some incredible milestones as well. It's been one of those years. And I think hopefully when we look back in another 12 months time, a lot of us out there will be like, you know what, we got through it. That was a pivotal year for me. We did it. We broke out of COVID and we got through it. And here we are, ready to rock, ready to get it. And I think, that's incredible. And that's what we're about to do. We're about to rock and roll. We're about to look back at the year we have had. We've had some incredible moments, you mob. We've had some incredible people on here, yarning strong with us, sharing their journey, getting real, getting deep, sharing insight. And that's what it's all about. We want to break through. We want to encourage you all to not be ashamed of where you're at with your mental health, but feel free to reach out. And the only way to do that is to have open, real, honest conversations. And we've been doing that. So I'm not going to keep rambling. Carissa, going to let you kick it off. Let's do it, my sister.
Thanks, Mitch. It definitely has been an eventful year for all of us, especially with Yarning Strong and the progress that we've made with it. So we are going to reflect on all of those conversations, and Mitch and I will discuss those pieces as well. But to kick off, I'd firstly like to play you the clip of our first Yarning Strong that we had in February 2020, and it was around navigating life online and also navigating media and social media and how that impacts our mental health as a whole. So please take a look at this clip.
Have these open conversations here, Yarning Strong, to bring about change, to bring about education, truth, but to also bring about togetherness and solidarity, so we can walk together and we can create change, you know. And we have to have these conversations, and certainly around protecting mental health, looking after our mental health and well-being, because social media, it's only growing, it's only getting larger.
Yeah, social media, it can really grab a hold of you and consume a lot of your time, a lot of your mental health. And though we're so, like, you know, being able to reach out to people, and I think we've seen that in the pandemic, but, you know, it really hit me when we're talking about how you feel loneliness, because even though we're getting that interaction, it's not real. Like, it's that interaction where you can't see people's expressions, or you can't feel like body language, or, you know, feel that warmth
like
from
all
people.
Of us were thinking, okay, here's a chance where we can put up some, you know, this message of Black excellence, Black resilience, you know, because existence is resistance. And so for us to be there on a TV screen with an audience of whatever million people that watch the fireworks, that's a statement, you know. Even if we weren't speaking about what we were speaking about, it's still a statement. So, you know, it was a powerful moment. And I know Barker and I, we went through our emotions of like, this is really happening, you know.
You know, we're talking about Treaty Off the Indy, even Midnight Oil at the Sydney Olympics, bang, sorry. There's been all these statement pieces all the way through. I guess the sad thing is here we are, New Year's Eve, right now in the present, and there's still this uneducation that's happening, where we have pivotal people in the media that have a position of power and influence that are obviously still not educated to a position of real empowerment around the true history and around the true statistics, which then in turns these outbursts that are unfortunate, because I think
they say, you know, you can change the whole world with one person, but it's not that person, you know. It's not like, there's other ways. There's other ways.
Yeah.
You know, as Black fellas, we're going to cop racism no matter what we're doing, what we're saying. Is just seeing Black fellas do good. You know, people automatically want to knock you down and make you feel smaller than them because because of the issues that reside within them, you know. And
a lot of kids are realizing like, this is the truth, and truth is what we need in our country right now. And this is kind of a step towards more of that.
Mental health. I find it really hard to see people so disempowered, and it's the passion in my work is to see the transition.
And what we started with, and I think like when we get these like people in the media, or, you know, people who go against us, it's kind of proving our point, you know. It's proving our point that we do live in a racist country that is ignorant to, you know, First Nations issues, that, you know, turn a blind eye to, you know, systematic racism. And
all of the dancers behind us, all these amazing deadly dancers, they all had the number 474 on their shirts, on their jerseys, and then a letter on each of them which spelled out the word freedom. Now, obviously, that refers to now the plus 500 Aboriginal deaths in custody since 1991 alone, that have never reached justice. You know, not one person has been convicted for these crimes. It's easier to project like a broader anger, you know, these weird and woke, this welcome to country, because it's easier to dismiss them. But if we start talking about more specifically the fights that we're talking about in our message, then they've got to own up to these truths. We've got to face these truths. So that's what I think is really powerful about what Barker and I did on that night.
And we're already losing so many people to suicide and mental health. And I think it's so sad that there's people getting on mainstream platforms that are in real positions of power and leadership, and are allowed to have these outbursts and still keep that position. That's the real sad
like
thing.
when my
you know.
cup's really empty and I'm just like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm so tired of explaining my existence to people. Like, I've been doing this my whole life. Like, when do we stop, you know? But then I realized that, you know, yarning to my kids and they're not going through racism at school, or their childhood's a bit different. It's like, this is what we're doing.
I try to have a bit
Like,
of
we're
fun
paving
too.
a way.
My family always say, like, don't feel guilty just for having a bit of fun, because I'm always, you know, on the clock, working hard, looking after other people. So that's another coping strategy, is make sure I get to salt water, make sure I have some time to kick back with wine and good people and good food.
But yeah, don't feed the trolls. Like, if somebody's coming at you, they got time. You can't argue with somebody who's better at arguing or like better at being stupid. So it's like,
this room can appreciate how hard it can be to balance giving to people you care about, but then giving to yourself. So I'm still trying to strike the right balance. So I need to plan ahead for 3 months, and then if I need to change it up, then I can
don't let
change it
anybody
up.
have their
So,
opinion on your page. Like, you know, they're not going to say it to your face. You know, like, these racists aren't going to come up to you and be like, yeah, well, you know, this is how it makes me feel about you being proud. They're not going to say that to you. So there's no need to have them in your safe spaces online. And I think create that, have mob on there, you know, who, when you jump online, that you're filled with praise, that you're filled with mob who uplift you, that you're not going on there and you're stressed out.
Instead of saying, how can I help you? So how can I help myself learn more so I can lift you, you know, like, that's where I want to see us move.
So again, like, my strategy is like, sometimes I just got to delete. I put the phone away. You know, I talk to like Buck is saying, like, I talk to mob and just, like, you know, make sure that I have like a good support system. I rely on my echo chamber.
So for me, I don't know everything. It's so important to my well-being and my mental health to accept that it's okay that I don't know everything. But the difference between myself and non-Indigenous people out there that don't have the correct information is that I've got the self-awareness, I've got the drive, and I've got the respect to go and ask and learn.
Don't be like afraid to say no. You know, if you're not feeling up to it, you don't have to do it. You come first every single time, lifting you up to how many people are bringing you down. And that's the thing that you got to focus on the most, is like, you know, are your family proud of you? Are your kids proud of you? Are you doing your mom proud? You know, what are you giving to your sister girls or your, you know, brother boys that are making them feel whole? Like, what, you know, that's the biggest payment of all. And I think that kind of, when you focus on that stuff, like, that negativity kind of just gets more quiet and more quiet.
And I think that's why these combos are great, because we've got to bring it back into the reality. And the reality is in the flesh, in the physical. There's so many people, like our ancestors and those that have come before us into the now, that are just so proud and so full of love for what we're setting out to achieve on any level. You know, it doesn't have to be on stage, just in life. You know,
there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I made a mistake, but I've grown since then. Acknowledge that. And say, yep, no, I don't agree with that anymore. My thinking has evolved and grown, and this is my new position. And I feel like as a Black woman myself, my education has grown so much
because
as well.
You know what, for the most of us, we never even had proper history lessons in school. I know I didn't, you know, so there's generations of generations that, you know, didn't get told the truth. So, I mean, why not chuck some great music in your ears that's also going to educate you and just give you a different perspective, you know? And it doesn't even have to be about education. It's just about knowing what's out there, you know, because there's so many incredible artists out there that should have mainstream platforms, you know, and the more people that can just get around First Nations artists, get around the amazing catalogue, the diversity out there, and just see what's happening in your own backyard, you won't regret it.
If you're looking to help, you know, subscribe to, listen to First Nations artists and listen to First Nations influencers, because it doesn't hurt to have a bit of truth in your feed. You know, it kind of balances out all that other stuff. So definitely follow us, donate. and have us in your daily
Basis,
conversations.
Reach out to Mob. Don't be ashamed to be like, hey, I'm not feeling too good. Like, I think Support Act's great as well. You know, for our mental health, that we have something there for us that we can reach, you know, an organisation there that's specifically for artists with mental health. You know, reach out to Mob, say that you're not feeling too good.
Thank you for that. And, you know, don't be ashamed. You know, there's no need to suffer in silence if you are struggling or if you are triggered. This helpline is for you. It really is. It really is for you to just reach on out and have a yarn. You know, you don't have to feel like you're going through absolute hell to call up. You could just be having a rough day. But either which way, that helpline is there for you. And, you know, we've done our best to make it as safe and secure as possible, so you can ring up and feel as comfortable as you can to have a yarn.
Wow, there we go. We're not mucking around you, Mob. We're getting straight to it. And that really stems from, you know, Barker and Dobby's performance at New Year's Eve, that also, I suppose, in a way was flowing into then what would be Jan 26 as well. And I think one of the main things to take away from this was, you know, when we're out there and we're telling our truth and sharing our truth and story, you just don't know what parts of the media are going to pick up what phrase and portray it in what way, or what's going to happen on social media in particular. I mean, it's full of keyboard warriors, as you know, so there was a lot to take home in that clip and in that part of the year. It was everywhere when it first happened. And to go back now and reflect at the back end of the year, when we're about to go and do it all again, I guess is a great take home and a message to just be mindful when you're out there. And, you know, it's all good. We want you to be able to tell your truth and be free in that, but realize there's going to be a flow and effect that unfortunately is going to be out of your control. So be ready, have systems in place, get some tools in the toolkit so that whatever happens, you're going to be okay, because that's the main thing. What do you reckon, Chrissa?
Yeah, there was definitely amazing takeaways, like in how to navigate social media, what our musicians and what our mob go through, and definitely the point of telling our truth and being strong in our truth, and just owning that and trying not to, you know, be drawn into that social media drama. But there was one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on, and this is not kind of what was said in those clips, but what a comedian said about his children and him not wanting them to have, you know, a phone or social media. Because sometimes when we jump online and we jump on those social media platforms, it's almost like we want to shut off ourselves and not feel those emotions that we're feeling. So it's so good to always have a break off social media, and just to feel your emotions, and as painful as they may be, it's so good to just sit in those moments and let those emotions pass. And, you know, for whatever reason you feel those emotions are too strong, there's always our helpline that you can contact. So that's 1-800-959-500. And you can talk to someone about those emotions, but it's always good to try and not shut those emotions out through these devices and through jumping online and using those technologies as well.
100%. Well said, sis. I mean, social media, it's a real space. We're going into the festive season. It could be a great time to take a break, or it could be a great time to just have fun with social media, have fun with the family, and just let go a bit. But whatever you do, you take a break and do it the way in which best suits you and your lifestyle. I mean, we know it's hard for us as artists to put down the phone, the device. That's the way of the world, but definitely try, even if it's just for a few hours throughout the day, and just have that time to yourself so you can catch your breath and reset for a big, year ahead. So yeah. Well, your mob, you tuned in. It's end of the year. Before we head into the next incredible segment, just want to acknowledge that you will be seeing Uncle Archie Roach, and I say his name with the most utmost respect and love to him and his family. If you didn't know, he did pass away this year, and is such a world-renowned, incredible artist, incredible human being, really, that had such an incredible story and incredible love for people and for his mob in particular. So, this segment, it's absolutely incredible. And to touch on the truth again of high incarceration rates, people winding up in where they're wound up and just not understanding why, but then having that long narrative like we all do back to the stolen generations. And we look at transgenerational trauma, and that in itself, it's such an intrinsic deep thing to even acknowledge and explore, that a lot of people out there don't even understand this trauma that they're carrying, and how that trauma can be, well, it is passed down if not resolved, and can go from generation to generation. It becomes a part of the DNA, and it's a really complex, deep, but very true thing that a lot of us as First Nations people go through. And through Uncle's journey, he was able to take us all on that ride of his own discovery and his own pain, and really reflect on that, and allow a lot of our mob to seek courage and seek shelter in his words, in his lyrics, in his own truth, because so many of us could identify to his story, and will continue to for generations to come, unfortunately, because as you know, if you didn't know, stolen generations hasn't stopped. The impacts of that continue, and our kids are still being removed at incredibly alarming a rate. So, it's was absolutely incredible to have Uncle Archie on here, and we want to show this clip with the utmost respect to him and his family, but we have to show it because Uncle had such a great insight and so much to offer the world, that it would be would be doing you all a disservice to not share his incredible words and wisdom with you all. So
music has a way of grounding you as well. Songs that I write, some are, I suppose, for others, but a lot of my first songs were therapeutic for myself, took the children away, and others just to help to heal or deal with that trauma. Music is a big part of not just who I am, but it's a big part of who we are as First Nation peoples. It's something that's always been with us. Music and song. For me, it's just natural that identity is also reflected in your music, as it has been for thousands of years, in this country. As well as unfortunately, a lot of young people that have become disconnected to their culture and to their people and country. A lot of young fellas. And girls and young fellas that I've seen have been locked up in places like where they've gotten into trouble with the law for one reason or another, and nobody's really looked at why they're going through this, or why it is. And I sit down, and me and old Jack Charles, Uncle Jack, we sit down and talk to these young people. And a lot of them have got no clue as to where they're from, or who where their country is, or who their family is. And not just, it's empowering, not for just the young people, I suppose, if it is, but for myself, that we have that, and we can help them. At least help them in a way to find their way back.
Business, one of my business values is identity, and it's the reason that I started my business many years ago, because of not only my own identity journey, but the identity journey of so many people that I was working with and serving. And but once you kind of leave the nest and you're out there, there's a lot of people telling you who you are and who you shouldn't be, and it's not okay to be this way, but you have to be this way. And you kind of go through this whole experience of stepping from a state of feeling really powerful and proud of who you are, to all of a sudden kind of questioning because historically our people were they were told that being themselves, I know my nan, she was born and raised on Cumragunja Mission, and she wasn't allowed to speak her Yorta Yorta language. She wasn't allowed to practice any culture. And she was basically, you know, taught and programmed to believe that, you know, the more she is white, the safer she's going to be.
School, because I had a similar experience, you know, oh, you're not black, you're not white. Oh, I guess you got a little bit of a broad nose. You got this, you know, like you're constantly pulled apart every which way.
Yeah.
And as a young person, it really can affect you on a deep level. It can make you angry. It can do all of these things. So
there was just this part of me that knew the truth of who I was, and I was so sick of being gammon basically and pretending I was all these things. But it was almost like a chameleon. But you know, so you'd adapt, you know, in different spaces. But in those spaces, I was losing myself. So
yeah, you know, you go through the roller coaster and you come into the 30s or whatever time it is, and you just start to all of a sudden want different things, or just start to decide to look from a different perspective, or to just tackle some of those hard traumas or experiences head on and just go, you know, I don't want to carry this anymore.
Yeah, and being categorized is another thing too. And then they'll go, oh, he's also Aboriginal. And man, people stop and think, oh, well, I don't know. We might give this one a miss for now. So it wasn't easy, even just to, you know, get a gig at the pub somewhere. People came and actually listened. Now, it could have been, you know, it could have been a hall with a dozen people. You know, there's seats about 100, but you know, there's only a dozen people in there, so and you're singing to them.
Yeah.
But it's those dozen people that are there that, by word of mouth, talk to other people, and so slowly but surely. I do mean slowly, but surely you start to get a reputation. You know, I'm lucky I had support like well-known songwriters and like Paul Kelly, who went in and sort of went into bat for me and then did a lot of things and actually stopped me signing one contract and said, no, that's not good enough. Yeah, if he wasn't there, I would have signed it. They realise, you know, it's not just about First Nations people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It's a human experience.
You know, 65,000 people complimenting us, and that one person that says a negative comment, we will focus on that, and it will just go over and over and over. It's, you know, it's human nature. It's how we're, you know, wired, and so. I think the more that we kind of, you know, remind ourselves of those people that love us, and I love what Uncle said around, you know, loving what you do and just, you know, focusing on the love, because, you know, the other side of that is fear, and, you know, we have a choice in every moment. It's really important to sort of set clear boundaries for yourself with social media, having set time that you're on it, you know, not allowing it to kind of take over your days, and, you know, disconnecting and connecting with real life as much as possible, I think is really important, because, you know, as we know, social media is just a highlight reel of everybody's life. You know, I'm certainly not, you're not seeing the ins and outs of my, you know, my bad days. I'm posting when things are going great. And,
you know, don't forget to, you know, do all these things that make us just as human as well, if not more human, because it's so easy to get lost on the reels, flicking through, and all of a sudden hours have passed and you just think, wow, everyone's got great lives, what's wrong with me? But we forget that that's only 10%, and a lot of these mob are in bed too, flicking through, not doing too much on it.
I've got to be like them, I've got to do this, I've got to do that in order to make it. And I realised all through it all that, just to be yourself. And that, to me, is success and people. You know, I've done, you know, sold out shows. That's one way of success. That's a sign of success. But I think it is. I've been doing this, you know, over 30 years, and I think, you know, to be able to do that, I must be doing something right. You know, eventually, I had to be doing something right. And it had a lot to be, like Yolanda said, being true to who you are because people can smell, BS miles away.
You get to reshape your identity the way that suits you. You get to recreate that for yourself and define who you are for yourself. And this is your story. It's okay to be disconnected or to not have grown up with community. That's your story. Own it and be proud of it, and honor that. Honor that part of your story, rather than try to fit into somebody else's story. And I have no shame in saying I don't know a lot about, I can't speak a lot of language. I don't know a lot of traditional ceremony, but I'm okay with that because there's other parts of who I am that I am strong in, and I'm really
But
strong.
people will always try to define who you are because you're fair. They say, oh, you look like a white fella, and that's got nothing to do with being Aboriginal. Aboriginal doesn't mean, the colour of your skin or how black you are. It means how deep, that river runs through you. And I said it goes far deeper than you can ever imagine. You have to be Aboriginal to understand that.
Yeah, what an amazing clip that was, seeing Uncle Archie there and his wise words, and also Yolanda, who's a life coach. She's got some amazing insight as well. So it's just so great to see those conversations unfold, and the knowledge that you have as well, Mitch, and contributing to that. But when trying to find your identity, especially in music, when you're in that spotlight and you're in that limelight and you're constantly being told that you're supposed to look a certain way or dress a certain way or be a certain way, that's not what black fellas are, and trying to hold your identity in that space is so hard, especially in regards to First Nations, people having not only their own identity in their own tribes, but each tribe being different in a sense of stemming from their own identity. And then you also have your own individual identities that you identify. You don't just identify with a culture, but you also identify with yourself and as yourself, and as what you view with the world. So it's super hard in definitely navigating those spaces and trying to find who you are as a person, where you connect to in culture, and where you fit in the world, being in the spotlight. I just can't imagine that. With that said, let's go into our next clip, and that is, we had our very first live Yarning Strong. So we
went live, sis.
We went live. We came offline, went all the way to Sydney, and had an amazing yarn with Dobby,
Yes.
Emily, and yourself, and in front of music industry goers, and it was just an amazing feeling to be up on that stage and reflecting back. So let's take a look at that clip.
A certain situation where you think is totally okay may really be coming from preconceived ideals that have been embedded in you since you've been conceived. And you might have an ideal or a certain perspective on us, and you might say something you think's okay, but it's the complete opposite. So we really want to open this up to you today. So
pressure of being a certain way, and I know we've had this yarn a lot of times before about, this sort of content that they want us to produce, or this sort of, being boxed in and tokenized in certain ways is a lot of pressure, and then you have to go through this sort of feeling of, well, then I've got to fight back, and that's extra energy used, and no one really understands that is energy that we have to use just to be who we want to be as musicians. And so non-Indigenous artists don't necessarily have to go through that. So there's a difference in the amount of energy that we have to put out just by being musicians,
Because there are so many layers that you have to peel back to get, I don't know, get to the root. And that root is that, you know, for me, it's that intergenerational trauma. Knowing what's happened to my family. My mum was taken when she was 7 years old, and she was returned, thank God, because my grandfather fought for her to return back to country. And I think it's important for these young ones to see us up here and to hear us having these conversations about it, because no one really talks about it.
And they're super supportive of me, and you know, bringing my voice into the music scene to be able to help the music industry understand what it's like for a First Nations person to not only grow up in a westernized society, but having to have a voice in the music industry itself, and not being labelled as that, you know, Aboriginal artist that comes in and ticks a box.
When I was growing up, I could name probably like 5, maybe 6 Indigenous artists that I would listen to and my grandparents would listen to, and now we have a diverse range across all genres. And one thing I found is community. When you come into this space, when you come into this industry as mob, we're family, and we all look after each other, we all talk to each other, we all reach out to each other, and we hold space for each other, because that's so important. So don't ever be afraid to reach out to any of us mob and be like, hey sis, or like, hey bro, like this is happening, this is what's going on, because we get it, and we go through it on the daily, and it's really exhausting. It can get really exhausting, and I think that's another thing that plays into this discussion about mental health, is that sometimes people they see us on stage, but they don't hear us.
Yep.
And I don't know.
You've got a deadly sister like Emily here, who could go toe to toe with, let's just say, Missy Higgins.
Yep.
But unfortunately, where we're still at is we can't seem to see past her identity and acknowledge her skill set. And it's like, oh, no, let's save Sister Emily. Let's save her we've got Sorry Day. We'll save her for that. Rather than, whoa, isn't she good? Let's let her headline. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not saying by any means that bookers, agents, anyone, that's the intent.
We are back, and that was another incredible clip. I have to say, our first live was amazing. So much fun, and just a real sense of, wow, we need to get out there and be in the front of people, because that's what it's all about. If we're going to have these convos, COVID's over, let's get in front of people and let's have these real honest conversations and rip the Band-Aid off. And I feel like we really did that in this one. Dobby and Emily were incredible, and I just felt like they both wore their heart on their sleeve and really spoke from their heart. And Emily was really raw as well, and really just let her feelings and emotions just flow, and was really in the moment, which I felt was really incredible, because it impacted a lot of people. A lot of people come away from that one and really took a lot home, and there was a lot of reflection to be had. And, you know, the conversation was really real, you know, navigating this Western machine, if you will, but yet coming from the oldest living culture on the planet that is so intrinsic and has had so much disruption, and being a young artist and trying to navigate through your own identity or traumas or whatever it may be, but still trying to thrive in this very disposable, if you like, industry that we're in. You know, one minute something's popping and the next minute it's finished and there's another thing. And also about how do we create more meaningful relationships in the industry. I remember them touching on the fact, you know, don't just book us NAIDOC week. Think outside the square here. You know, we're here 365 days a year. Our people have been here since the beginning of creation. We're ready to work whenever. It doesn't just mean that 1 week in the year where everyone decides to wear red, black, and yellow. You know, we're here and we're ready to roll. So I feel like there was so much to take away from that, and to be there and in the present moment, and obviously be able to host it was just incredible. And there was a real energy that day. What do you reckon, sis? What was your take home from that incredible first iconic Yarning Strong live?
It was, I feel like it was even way more impactful, just having an audience there, seeing everyone's individual emotions and feelings. And, you know, Emily actually like being really raw with her emotions. And, you know, she even shed a tear on stage about, you know, her not feeling heard or listened to, and just for having people to listen and to hear us and to acknowledge us, but also to respect where we come from and what we come from. was huge to you know, do live and at our Head First conference, and we got so many amazing and great feedback, and people were just so encouraging, and hopefully we can do some more live for you guys in the coming year.
For sure, sis, for sure. But you know what? It's not over yet, you mob. Let's just put it that way, because we did have a NAIDOC week and there was a special. Things went on, and it's not, you know, like going on from what we just talked about, it's not like we don't want to celebrate NAIDOC week and we don't want to be booked in NAIDOC week and we don't want to be out there front and center and just getting it done and representing for our people. It's just that within that particular talk, we're saying, hey, that's great, but let's expand beyond 1 week. You know, let's not just look for a particular artist that we use for 1 week of the year, but then all of a sudden we'll just put them on the back burner for the rest of the year, because they're incredible artists that should be celebrated all year round. You know what I mean? So these are the conversations we've got to have. But look, I'm not going to ramble. Chrissa, talk us through it. That NAIDOC week special, what was it to you? What does NAIDOC week mean to you in reflection?
NAIDOC week is huge for Mob. It's such a huge celebration, and it's such a great way for us to come together as a community and look at all our achievements. And you know, one of the reasons why we did this Yarning Strong was to not only focus on the negative, but also focus on the positive and what supports us and what helps our mental health and impacts us overall. So that was the back of this comment, and this Yarning Strong, and going into that and just showing our mindfulness through celebrating Mob in general. So let's cross over and take a look at that clip.
Let's do it.
It meant for me to connect to the wider Aboriginal community and connect with culture more, because it's not like you get the opportunity all year round to connect with Mob and culture, and it's a beautiful way of seeing it and being involved in it and growing up with it and learning and continuing and being part of that to continue that on and use it within my art as well. But there's also that the other side to it as well is for the non-Indigenous community to connect with Aboriginal, Black, First Nations people as well, you know, to learn culture and connect. And but yeah, it's definitely it's only 1 week of the year, and you know, there's a lot to learn. So for me, NAIDOC is all about celebrating our culture through our yarning, our dance, our music, our art, and it's fun. It's a celebration, really. For me, it's a beautiful celebration.
It's a beautiful celebration. I think for me, it's NAIDOC week. We're not going to class all week because we're just going to be painted up and we're going to be dancing at every school and event in the whole town. Let's go. And then you get a bit older again, and I think you start to really reflect on it. And some of the questions are, it's such a great week, but how come after that week's finished, we're not busy anymore? Like, what's going on? We're so in demand of that week. You know, lots of the time, especially growing up, you wouldn't get asked to do anything until the day before. And so I'm like, hey, can you be there and play some Didge tomorrow? Can you be here? Can you be there? And you just flat out and wanted, and it's like, whoa, we're so valued right now. And then all of a sudden, that week's over, and it's just like, oh,
pretty, like, I guess corny, but really know yourself. Like, understand your own triggers.
Sure.
And because another thing I live by is you can only meet somebody at the level that you've met yourself. And if you haven't done the work to dig deep enough to meet yourself, how can you possibly understand another's perspective? You know, and owning it. Like, if it's uncomfortable, own that. If you're starting to get welled up and, you know, like if you're starting to get angry, like, because like that's my dominant emotion that I'm learning myself, is that anger. But owning it, going, look, okay, I'm getting really, you know, peed off now. I'm just going to go walk away and take a few breaths, but I'm committed to making this. I'm committed to hearing your side. I'm committed to, you know, healing this together. I just need to control me for a moment because that's all I can control, and then come back into it, you know.
And sometimes really, it's like, okay, well, I'm not the most educated. How am I going to do that? Okay, well, I need to enroll in university, become sharp, read books, play the game. I think the biggest proponent towards the Indigenous population having the voice is we're not playing the game. And I think, you know, there's structures that do exist now, and I think we need to learn how to navigate through that. And the best tool to use to navigate through that is speech, language, academia, as
Tuned
well.
in today at this Yarn Strong. You know, we've gone a bit deep and heavy, but the reality is, NAIDOC Week, just celebrate. That's all you got to do. If you see us walking down the street and you're rocking our shirt and we give you a nod, that's like a nod of approval.
And we're back. That was such an amazing talk, you know, really grappling things that we discussed in those moments. So Mitch, I'm going to throw to you, what was your favorite takeaway from this discussion?
Yeah, there's a lot that was said, wasn't there? But I think I love what Laura said, and that is you can only meet someone at where you've met yourself. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it kind of takes the onus of all of the finger pointing and turns that finger around back to self and go, well, am I reacting at this situation because of X, Y, and Z? You know, it's really interesting, isn't it? It really takes the onus off putting it on someone else, but back to yourself of, okay, why am I reacting that way? Or why do I have this? Why do I really have this perception? What is it? So I love that. I think it was just a great one-liner that just made you go, What about you, sis? What was your takeaway? Talk to me.
My big takeaway would be, you know, really touching on the topic of get up, stand up, show up, and you know, asking, you know, our allies to not only come together and support us, but let us be heard, and then also support us not only in NAIDOC but outside NAIDOC Week, what we touched on before. So yeah, it was a big discussion to have, especially with that, you know, whole theme of get up, stand up, and show up. So
100%. I mean, it was great. There was lots to take away from that one, but then I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like we ended up at Big Sound after that. Is that correct?
We did.
Big Sound, eh? What a I didn't know what to think when we're going to Big Sound, because it's like we're in the heartland of our arts community, and how are we going to be received? But I felt like it really went down well. It was a great conversation. We had some great panelists though as well. What was your thoughts on that before we throw to this incredible clip?
Well, we actually don't have the clip for Big Sound.
Krista, what? It's the end of the year and we don't have the clip.
We don't. We did have a videographer go around, but unfortunately we weren't able to get that clip. So that's very
You should have been there, you mom. You should have shown up. I've got to say, it was great. It was Tasman, wasn't it?
It was
I
Tasman.
thought it was incredible the way he shared his story and just put himself out there. That's what it's really about, isn't it? This series that's what it's about. It's just about getting vulnerable and just sharing those parts of yourself. And there's no pressure on anyone. We obviously respect that. But when you have those moments like we did with Brother Boy, I thought it was really powerful. And there was just people in the audience just really sponging it up. And it was a great moment, wasn't it?
It was such an amazing moment, like to get Tasman up there. And I'll just touch on, you know, the story, his background in that story that we discussed. But in that conversation, he was talking about how he went to a festival and he was performing at a festival and he had his family there, and he wanted to bring his family backstage, not only outside of the rain, but away from all the commotion, and just to come back and celebrate with him in that moment that he's going to get up on stage, because this is absolutely huge, being a festival for First Nations people and getting up on stage. And it's so exciting for Mob to be there and for family to be there and see that. And his family was denied in coming backstage, which was such a shame. And, you know, these are the reasons why we have these conversations, is because to let people know these are the issues we have. This is what we need to this is what we need to fix, and let's work together to fix it. So yeah, that was one of my big takeaways from that conversation. What about you? What was your big takeaway from that?
Yeah, I mean, I just loved how he shared it, and was just, he knew that he was putting himself out there, but just felt, you know what, for the betterment of moving forward and creating awareness, I'm going to share this story. And I just thought it was powerful. And, you know, it's powerful, but obviously sad as well. And that's where it comes back to education and educating people. And hopefully, you know, you like to hope that there wasn't a stigma attached, or it wasn't what we think it was. But moving forward, you know, if you've got family members there and it's bucketing down rain, and it's your younger sibling or whatever, you would think that it's just the human thing to do, to let them backstage and let them have some shelter. But, you know, I think the power was in the messenger, and just him allowing us to just be in that moment with him and really share something that obviously really hurt him and was a real sore spot. And also him putting himself out there into the industry, because, you know, to do that and tell the story, and he told it in all its truth, was really big of him, I thought. So that was my take home. And then, sis, we went to, where did we go next? Golden Sounds, something? Gold Sounds?
Gold Sounds, and that was
We've been everywhere this year.
another live.
Dallas Woods, he was phenomenal, was he not?
He was so good.
He was great. That was incredible. We went there, had an incredible yarn, but I just thought, I mean, the whole panel was great again, but for me, I thought Dallas was just really real, just a brother that's been in the industry for quite a while, been on one heck of a roller coaster, and just sort of had no one there to really just guide him through it and just help him make informed choices. So he had to just go and just do it, you know, and it led him down many paths. And I just love the way he shared it in such a way where there was so much reflection and growth in it, where it was like you could just see this brother grabbing other brothers and sisters by the hand and saying, look, let me, I'll walk you down this road. You know what I mean? What did you think?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. I thought Dallas was well spoken, and actually every time he spoke, I was like, oh, that's a good thing that I'll elaborate on, or that's a good thing that I can bring in, like statistics or something in there that will draw the community in a lot more. So that was a great conversation, and that conversation in particular was you know, breaking down the barriers at Gold. So that was you know, talking about what mob go through, what we go through. And I remember touching on a conversation that you imagine that you're a person who is part of the stolen generation. You imagine that you grow up with a mum and she was loving and she was caring. And this is one of the things I say in those conversations. You know, you grow up with a mum who's loving and caring, and then all of a sudden you're taken away, and you don't understand why you're taken away. And you're like, that's my mum. And then you get put into a home, and you're looking around, and nothing is normal for you anymore. And you imagine what that kind of trauma that they go through, and then that trauma then is passed down, because our parents experienced this disconnection, and now we're experiencing it, and then it continues and continues. And so these are the barriers that we currently struggle with, and people not understanding those barriers. So we need to get back to those moments. So that was my big takeaway, and, you know, me being able to elaborate on that and being able to give the audience a visual picture of those, you know, past generations that we've had, those past traumas, and then it playing in now today. What was your big takeaway from that?
Yeah, I think just what I said before, I just thought, you know, I guess my takeaways aren't so much these one-liners and things, although there is some, but really just seeing our incredible guests come to life through the experience and just really share their stories. And there's so much to take out of someone's journey when reflecting upon or being in that moment, and so many little nuggets of gold that get, you know, chucked out into the atmosphere. And I thought that was such a great day, and it was just a bit of a shame that it was floods. I think the Marramanong here in Naarm was just overflowed and people kayaking down their streets. So to get out to Castlemaine for others was a bit tricky, but nonetheless, it was absolutely incredible. And, I think it's a great one to end with in going into the holiday season, because with that said, make sure you're mindful this holidays. I shouldn't say make sure, but we've got some incredible tips to help you connect, reflect, and just make sure you're getting the most out of this holiday season where you get a bit of a rest. So I'm going to hand it over to Carissa. She's going to share some incredible tips with you all, because this mindful stuff, it's not all wishy-washy. That's what I'm finding as I'm getting older. It's real, it's really helpful, it's beneficial, and they're little tips that you can just carry with you everywhere that can really aid you, especially in the hustle and bustle and the grind and the online lifestyle where you can, have performance anxiety or just anxiety around social media or whatever it may be. Could be stresses, whatever. These little tips are great. So my sister, let's get mindful ready. Let's do it.
Thank you, Mitch. So a few mindfulness tips that I just want to touch on with you guys is number one, if you're feeling overwhelmed, stop, take a deep breath, and just breathe. It's so good to practice breathing. There's a really great breathing technique that you guys can look at, and it's called box breathing. So I'd highly recommend you just do even 3 minutes of box breathing, or just even 5 to 10 minutes of just sitting there and feeling that breath and taking notice of your breath. It's such a good thing to do. And your body always needs oxygen. Sometimes in stressful moments, we bring our breath to a low and fast breath, which is actually not good for our brains and bodies. So when we're breathing, when we're being mindful of our breathing, we're giving our body that oxygen that it needs to be able to be in that relaxed and calming state. Another mindfulness tip is connection to country. Always get out there, connect to the country. If you can get back to your home, get back to your homelands and just dig your feet in that sand and sit and just be on country. But if you're not in your homelands, it's always just good to get out in nature and just connect to country, because we are all connected and country is all connected to us. And even though we may not be in our natural homelands, I feel like there's always that connection that flows either through the rivers or the trees or the land. So just get out. And number 3 is, again, if you can't get back to country, get out there, get fresh air and breathe that fresh air. Statistics have been shown that fresh air actually supports in your mental health. And if you're enclosed indoors all the time, you've always got that recycled air, whereas if you get outside, you've got that fresh air, and that actually supports in relaxation as well. Number 4 is a huge one for me, and that's meditation. Meditation is not always what it seems to be. So you guys might feel that meditation is just sit there and clear your mind. It's actually not that. You can be sitting by water and you can just be looking at the water and meditating. And you may not know that you're meditating. You can be gardening and just using your hands and meditating, and you may not know that you're meditating. But get out there and do those meditations if you can. 5 to 10 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes is really good. It's not much out of your day. Meditation is so good for your health. And you can do it in a form that you feel that would support you. So any form of meditation that you can get involved in, absolutely, I recommend it. Number 5 is also allow yourself to feel those emotions. Again, I think I mentioned it in our discussion, is just feeling those emotions that come and letting them pass, and feeling them, letting them pass. But if they are feeling overwhelming, if you feel like you can't handle those emotions, it's always good to reach out to someone, someone that you trust, or even our helpline, which again is 1-800-959-500. And then you can book an appointment with our beautiful counsellors. We do have First Nations counsellors, so absolutely reach out to them and ask to be linked in with a First Nations counsellor. If you feel like your life may be at risk because of those emotions, definitely Lifeline is one that you should be calling, or 000 if you do feel like your life is at risk. Number 6 is exercise. There are studies and there are statistics that show that if you get outside and if you exercise and you move your body and your blood is moving, it's so good for your mental well-being. So even and exercise is not getting out there doing hardcore workouts, but it can be just walking. It can be just moving your body, dancing. Exercise comes in many different forms. Number 7 would be eating healthy. There are again statistics that show that link your mental health to your gut health. So please ensure that you're getting those proper vitamins that your body needs to be able to support your mental well-being. Number 8 is being with family. It's always good to connect to kinship. And that's part of being First Nations. We're surrounded by family, we're surrounded by our kinship. So connect back to your family. If you're not surrounded by family, or you can't be surrounded by family for whatever reason, connect with your friends, connect with the people that you love. It's always good to just be around positive people. Number 9 is a huge one for me because I know I'm guilty of it. But positive self-talk. Stop giving yourself that negative self-talk. One way to support your mental health is saying 7 things that you're proud of yourself for. So remind yourself of why you're proud of yourself. Commit to yourself things, because a lot of times people commit to other people. They're always saying, I will be there 100%, I will be there for you. But more than often, we never commit time to ourselves. And so make sure you're making yourself that commitment, and commit yourself to 7 things, commit yourself to 7 things. And also forgiving yourself is a huge thing. You need to allow that space to just forgive and not like learn from your mistakes. Forgive. It's always good to go back and reflect and just allow yourself to make those mistakes and move on from them. And number 10, our last one, is always take a break. If you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't feel guilty for taking time to yourself. But if you do take time to yourself, make sure that you are actually taking time for yourself. You're not getting on, social media. You're not getting on technology. You're actually going and jumping in a bath and reading a book, or, getting a massage or getting a manicure and a pedicure. Just take time for yourself and recover if you're feeling like you're feeling way too.
Take control of that breath and just let your body know it's okay. We're in control here. We're good. we're okay. You know, it could be a stressful time in the kitchen at Christmas and you're just like, nah, I'm going to lose it. Just sit, and you just go to the bathroom, a couple of just them breaths. That's it, that box breathing. Just, you can use it in every single scenario. So there you go. Mindfulness tips, Carissa. Incredible. Thank you, as always, for everything that you have done to this incredible project, for getting it up, working behind the scenes, for everything that you do for our mob, for our people, for the progression of our people, for education of our allies in the wider community. We thank you so much. And to everyone that has been with us all year, we are honestly so grateful for your incredible inboxes of love, of insight, of questions, conversations down the street. We just thank you so much for riding with us and for taking part in this, because, you know, this isn't about us just talking to a screen or coming to just have incredible panels. We want to create a community here that wants to progress, that wants to have these conversations, that wants to rip the Band-Aid off, and certainly aid those with their mental health as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, JB Hi-Fi. Thank you, Mr. Troy Benjamin, for your incredible edits and everything that you bring to the table, and obviously Support Act. We love all of you, fam. And thank you so much. And I look forward to jumping back on board in the new year to rock with you all again and to have these much needed conversations. Thank you so much. Take care. Have an incredible Christmas with your loved ones, with your families, and we'll see you again soon.